He kicked out his wife in labor for Mistress, unaware of her $50 million inheritance. What she did shocked him. The moment her contractions began, she thought her husband would be the first to grab her hand, to whisper comfort, to stay by her side. Instead, James ripped off his wedding ring, tossed it on the hospital chair, and walked out, straight into the arms of his mistress. He left his wife in labor, abandoned and humiliated, unaware that the woman he cast aside was heir to a $50 million inheritance. What she did next didn't just shock him. It destroyed everything he thought he knew about power, love, and loyalty. Clara's cries echoed down the bright, sterile hospital corridor as nurses pushed her bed through swinging double doors. Her face was damp with sweat, hair clinging to her cheeks. But the pain that carved lines into her expression wasn't only from labor. It was from the sight of James turning his back on her when she reached out for him. "James, please!" Her voice cracked between contractions, her hands trembling as she reached for him. "It's our child. Stay. I need you." His eyes flicked down at her like she was a stranger begging for loose change. His phone buzzed again in his pocket, and the way his lips curled into a smirk told Clara everything. She already knew who it was. Vanessa, the woman who had whispered poison into his ear for months. He pulled out his phone, ignoring the nurse's stern voice. "Sir, she's dilating. This is the critical stage. She needs you here." But James didn't flinch. He answered the call, stepping back toward the door. "Yeah, babe, I'll come." "No, don't worry about her. She can handle herself. You're the one who matters." Clara's chest tightened as if another contraction had stabbed her heart. She reached out again, her voice breaking. "Don't leave me, James. I can't." But he silenced her with a sneer. "This baby was your idea, not mine. Don't chain me to your mistakes." He yanked the ring from his finger and let it drop onto the chair with a metallic clink that rang louder than her cries. "We're done." Then he walked away. The automatic doors slid shut behind him. And with every step he took, Clara felt her world collapsing. The nurse squeezed her hand, whispering reassurance, but it barely pierced the storm roaring in her mind. Betrayal, humiliation, disbelief, each one crashed into her like waves. And then, through the fog of pain, her mind flicked to something else. Tucked deep inside her hospital bag was a sealed envelope, her father's handwriting across it. She had never opened it. He had told her once, voice heavy with finality, "This letter is for you when you bring your first child into the world, not before." Her father had been gone for years, but even now on the brink of motherhood, his voice whispered in her ears. She didn't know why, but her trembling hand itched to tear that envelope open. Another contraction ripped through her, dragging her back into the now. And Clara screamed, not just for the life she was fighting to bring into the world, but for the life that had just been ripped away from her. Clara's scream shook the ward, and moments later the cry of a newborn pierced the air. The sound should have been the greatest joy of her life, but the chair beside her bed stood empty, James's wedding ring glinting coldly on its seat. A nurse lifted the tiny, squirming infant and laid the child on Clara's chest. Her tears streamed silently as she whispered, "Welcome to the world, my love. Don't worry, Mama's here." Her hands trembled as she held her baby close, but her mind drifted toward the envelope buried in her hospital bag. Her father's words echoed, "When you bring new life into this world, the truth will set you free." She hadn't opened it yet. Fear and exhaustion pressed down on her, but she knew deep inside, whatever was in that envelope could change everything. Meanwhile, across town, James sank into the leather sofa of Vanessa's glittering penthouse. The city lights reflected off her floor-to-ceiling windows, painting them in silver and gold. Vanessa glided toward him in a silk robe, carrying 2 glasses of champagne. "To us," she purred, placing 1 glass in his hand. Finally, no more baggage. No more whining wife. No screaming baby. She curled into his lap, her perfume thick and intoxicating. "Just you and me, James, the way it was always meant to be." James smirked, raising his glass, though his hand shook slightly. "She'll be fine. She's strong." Vanessa arched a brow, her smile sly. "Strong doesn't pay bills, darling. And last I checked, you're drowning in debt." How do you plan to take care of me? Because let me be clear, I'm not interested in poverty. James stiffened. He hated the reminder. Weeks of gambling losses, failed investments, and creditors circling him had chewed holes in his pride. Clara had no idea he'd hidden it all from her. Vanessa's words twisted the knife deeper. Don't worry about money, he said quickly, forcing a grin. I'll figure it out. I've got deals lined up. I just need a little time. She leaned closer, her lips brushing his ear. I didn't leave everything behind just to wait around while you figure it out. I need guarantees, James. And right now, you're looking like a liability. The champagne fizzed in his throat, sour on his tongue. For the first time that night, doubt crept in. He had chosen Vanessa over Clara, but was she really his salvation or another trap? Back at the hospital, Clara's baby whimpered softly, and she pressed her lips to the child's forehead, rocking gently. Her eyes fell on the envelope once again. For hours it had sat unopened, but tonight felt different. Betrayal had shattered her illusions. If there was truth to be known, she could no longer run from it. She reached for her bag, fingers brushing over the worn paper. The seal remained intact, her father's handwriting elegant but firm. Her chest tightened. The words inside would either be a lifeline or another weight to carry. Clara's tears blurred her vision as she whispered to her child, Your grandfather left something for us. I don't know what it is yet, but I promise you, whatever's in here, it will protect us. You will never feel abandoned like I did tonight. As she pressed the envelope against her chest, James laughed hollowly across town, clinking glasses with a woman who was already plotting her next move. Two worlds spinning apart, yet destined to collide again, when truth and betrayal finally bared their teeth. The hospital room had quieted. The nurses had dimmed the lights, leaving only the soft glow from a bedside lamp. Clara sat propped up with her newborn swaddled against her chest, her body exhausted but her mind restless. The wedding ring James had discarded still lay where it had fallen, mocking her in the silence. Her eyes returned again and again to the envelope. Her fingers finally reached for it, trembling as though it might burn her. She broke the seal slowly, unfolding the paper inside. Her father's handwriting leapt off the page, strong and deliberate, as if he had known she would one day need his voice more than ever. My dearest Clara, if you are reading this, then you have brought new life into the world. I may not be there to hold your hand, but I am with you in spirit. This child is not only your blessing, it is your strength, and now you must know the truth. Her breath hitched. She pressed the paper closer, eyes racing over the words. Before I passed, I secured a trust in your name, $50 million. It was designed to activate upon the birth of your first child, so that no man could ever manipulate you, abandon you, or reduce your worth to what he thought you had. This fortune is yours alone. Use it wisely. Use it with courage. But remember, money is only power when paired with wisdom. Choose love, choose dignity, and never let betrayal define you. The letter slipped in her hands as tears blurred her sight. $50 million. The number itself seemed unreal, like a dream she didn't dare trust. Her father had left her more than money. He had left her freedom. Clara looked down at her baby's tiny fingers curled around hers. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. Choose love over gold, or gold will destroy you. She thought of James storming out, of Vanessa's smug face the night she had caught them together. A bitter smile touched her lips. James had walked away thinking he was stepping into wealth, freedom, and glory, when in truth he had abandoned the very fortune that would have saved him. But Clara wasn't thinking of revenge, not yet. At that moment, she was thinking of survival, of starting over, of building a life where her child would never feel the hollow sting of abandonment. A soft knock on the door startled her. The nurse entered quietly, checking her vitals, then glanced at the ring still glinting on the chair. Her eyes softened, but she didn't ask questions. Clara folded the letter quickly, sliding it under her pillow. The nurse smiled faintly as she adjusted the baby's blanket. You're stronger than you think, she whispered. Some men don't realize what they lose until it's gone. Clara forced a nod, though her throat was tight. As the nurse left, she leaned back, clutching her child and the hidden letter. For the first time since James walked out, she felt something stir in her chest. Not just pain, but resolve. The world thought she was a discarded, broken wife. James thought he had rid himself of a burden. But in her hands lay the beginning of a future none of them could imagine. And one day soon, she would rise. Not just for herself, but for her child. Across town, James sat in Vanessa's penthouse, laughing too loudly at a joke she hadn't even told. He downed glass after glass of champagne, trying to drown the gnawing anxiety clawing at his gut. He didn't know it yet, but the moment he left that hospital, he hadn't just walked out on a wife in labor. He had walked away from $50 million and the kind of power that would one day bring him to his knees. Vanessa's penthouse shimmered with city lights, but James felt none of its warmth. The crystal chandelier glowed above, champagne bottles lined the counter, and yet the emptiness gnawed at him. He had imagined freedom would taste sweet, but tonight it tasted bitter, like something spoiled. Vanessa sauntered out of the bedroom in a tight dress, every step deliberate, her glass heels clicking against the marble. She studied James slouched on the sofa, his tie undone, his face pale. "You don't look like a man who just got everything he wanted," she said, curling her lips into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. James forced a laugh, running his hand through his hair. "I'm just tired. The whole hospital thing. Stressful night, you know?" Her gaze sharpened. "Stressful for her, maybe. You're the one who walked out." She poured herself another glass of champagne, sipping slowly, watching him over the rim. "Tell me, James, what exactly did you walk into?" The words stung. He shifted uneasily. "Into us. Into our future." Vanessa set the glass down with a delicate clink, then leaned forward. "A future needs money, stability. You keep promising deals, but promises don't pay rent. You told me you were on the edge of something big. Where is it?" James clenched his jaw, anger bubbling beneath the surface. "I said I'm working on it. The market. She cut him off, her laugh sharp as glass. "James, don't insult me. I didn't choose you because you're charming. I chose you because I thought you were smart enough to build something. But all I see is a man running from one failure to the next." His fist tightened, the humiliation crawling up his throat. "I left her for you. I burned everything for you. Don't stand there and call me a failure." Vanessa's smile vanished, her eyes hardening. "Then prove me wrong. Or don't expect me to stick around while you sink." Her words struck deeper than she intended, because James knew she was right. Creditors had been hounding him for weeks. His last investment had crumbled. Even the car he drove was leased and overdue. Without Clara, without her steady income and patience, he was exposed, naked in the brutal light of reality. For a fleeting moment, her face overlapped with Clara's in his memory. Clara holding his hand years ago when he lost his job, whispering, "We'll get through this together." Back then, he had felt shame, but also love. Now looking at Vanessa, all he felt was pressure. Vanessa sighed dramatically, turning away. "You better not disappoint me, James. I don't carry dead weight." His chest heaved, anger simmering, but he said nothing. He needed her, for now. Or at least, he thought he did. Across the city, Clara rocked her newborn in the dim hospital light. The envelope lay safely tucked under her pillow, but its words rang in her mind. $50 million. A lifeline. A shield. A weapon if she chose to wield it. She kissed her baby's tiny forehead and whispered, "He thinks he left me broken. But he has no idea what's coming." The city moved on outside, cars rushing, lights glowing, lives unfolding. But within two very different rooms, one filled with new life and hope, the other with greed and crumbling lies, the seeds of an inevitable collision were already taking root. The sun was breaking over the city when Clara stepped out of the hospital with her newborn cradled against her chest. The night storm had washed the streets clean, and the air carried the damp scent of renewal. A driver from her late father's estate waited at the curb, bowing slightly as he opened the car door. She hesitated, blinking against the light, feeling as if the entire world had shifted overnight. The hospital gown had been replaced by a simple dress, her hair pulled back, but her eyes, though weary, were sharper than they had been hours ago. She held the envelope tightly in her free hand, almost afraid to let it go. "Congratulations, madam," the driver said softly, glancing at the baby. "Mr. Harold instructed us years ago to look after you, especially after—" His voice trailed off respectfully. "The estate is prepared. Everything will be explained when you're ready." Clara swallowed hard. She had lived modestly since her father's death, never reaching for the wealth she knew was hidden somewhere beyond her reach. James had always scoffed at her background, calling it comfortably middle class, and resenting that her father didn't leave her instant money. She had let him believe it because she thought love mattered more. But now she saw her father's wisdom in every word of that letter. The car glided through the city, past skyscrapers gleaming in the dawn. Clara's gaze fell on mothers walking their children to school, couples holding hands, life moving as if her world hadn't just shattered. Her baby stirred in her arms and she whispered, "I promise you, my child, you'll never depend on someone who can walk away. Not like he did. We'll stand on our own." When the car stopped at the gates of her father's old estate, a sprawling house she hadn't visited since his funeral, Clara's breath caught. The place was alive again. Staff moved with quiet efficiency, the gardens were tended, and inside, a trusted lawyer waited. He rose when she entered the study, offering a warm smile. "Clara, your father prepared for this day. The trust has matured. $50 million are at your disposal. Tax protected, invested, liquid where needed." He pushed forward documents, sliding them across the desk. "He wanted you to have choices, freedom." Clara stared at the papers, her child's soft breaths warm against her neck. Freedom. The word felt foreign after years of compromise and humiliation. She signed where she was asked, each stroke of the pen carving away the remnants of the life James had tried to cage her in. "Use it wisely," the lawyer said. "Your father believed in you." She left the office steadier than she had entered. The mansion's windows gleamed in the morning light, no longer an empty relic, but a promise of the future. Standing on the steps, she lifted her chin and whispered to her baby, "He thought he broke me, but this is just the beginning." Across town, James stumbled into Vanessa's kitchen, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. Bills littered the counter, marked red and urgent. Vanessa scrolled on her phone, not even glancing up. "You need to fix this," she said coldly. "I didn't leave my comfort for a man who can't provide." James slammed his fist on the counter. "I left everything for you." Finally, she looked up, smirking. "Then maybe that was your first mistake." James's stomach twisted. For the first time, he wondered if he had made the worst trade of his life, and miles away, Clara was stepping into hers. The days that followed moved like a storm parting into sunlight for Clara. She walked the halls of her father's estate, no longer abandoned but alive with staff who treated her with quiet respect. Each morning she cradled her baby by the wide windows overlooking the gardens, the letter from her father resting on her bedside table as a daily reminder. Freedom is yours, but use it with wisdom. Slowly she began to shed the skin of the humiliated wife. A stylist from the estate helped her reclaim herself. Her posture straightened, her clothes sharpened into elegance, and her eyes carried not the look of a woman discarded, but of one rediscovering her strength. The world that once felt suffocating now lay open at her feet. But she did not rush to revenge, not yet. She thought of her child, of legacy, of the kind of life she wanted to build. She began quietly funding small projects in her father's name, charity shelters for single mothers, scholarship funds, tiny sparks that would soon flame into a public image no one could ignore. Meanwhile, James's life shrank into shadows. He paced Vanessa's penthouse with restless energy, his phone lighting up with creditor calls he no longer answered. Vanessa grew colder with each passing day. One evening, she stood by the window, glass of wine in hand, not bothering to face him as she spoke. "You know, James, I expected more from you. You left your wife bleeding in a hospital bed for me. That's commitment. But where's the payoff? Where's the future you promised?" James gritted his teeth, his voice rising. "I'm working on it. Do you think success just falls from the sky?" Her laugh was bitter, cutting. "No, but I think men with real ambition don't need excuses. Tell me, James, when the creditors come banging, are you going to send me to answer the door? Because I won't. He slammed a hand on the table, veins straining at his neck. You don't get it. Clara was holding me back. Vanessa whirled on him, her eyes flashing. Don't blame her. You're the one failing. And if you think I'll play nursemaid to a broke man, you're mistaken. The words hit harder than she intended, but James could see the truth behind them. Vanessa wasn't his salvation. She was his executioner, waiting for the right moment. And for the first time, doubt flickered strong enough to make him question if he had thrown away something priceless. That night, Clara stood before a mirror in her father's estate, her baby asleep nearby. She smoothed her dress, her reflection glowing with quiet strength. She thought of James's face the moment he walked out, full of disdain. She thought of the ring he had thrown, still lying on the hospital chair, her lips curled into the faintest smile. He thought he freed himself, she whispered to her reflection, but he doesn't know. He chained himself to his own ruin. The city lights twinkled in the distance, two lives running on opposite tracks, hers climbing steadily toward light, his spiraling into darkness. Fate was not done with them. Their paths would cross again, but when they did, the balance of power would be nothing like before. The ballroom shimmered with golden light, chandeliers scattering brilliance across polished marble floors. Guests mingled in tuxedos and gowns, cameras flashing as reporters snapped photos of dignitaries and philanthropists arriving at the gala. At the center of it all was Clara, her presence radiating like quiet fire. She wore a long sapphire gown, her hair swept elegantly over her shoulder, and though her smile was soft, her eyes carried a steadiness that silenced doubts. In her arms, she did not carry her infant. She carried her father's legacy. The gala was in his honor, the launch of the Herald Foundation, a multi-million-dollar initiative to fund shelters for single mothers abandoned in their most vulnerable hour. The room applauded as she took the stage, cameras catching her every word. Her voice did not shake. This foundation is more than charity. It is survival. I know what it is to be left alone when you need someone most. But tonight, I want to say to every woman out there, you are not alone. You are stronger than you know. And sometimes what feels like the end is the beginning. The crowd erupted in applause, tears glimmering in the eyes of women in the audience. Reporters scribbled furiously, her photo splashing across live feeds within minutes. And somewhere across the city, slouched in a bar with his last crumpled bills, James looked up at the screen. He froze. The noise of the bar seemed to vanish as his wife's face, no, his ex-wife, lit up the television. Clara, glowing, powerful, admired. The announcer's voice filled the room. Clara Mitchell, heiress to the Herald estate, unveiled a $50 million foundation tonight, dedicated to empowering single mothers across the country. James's glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor. The bartender swore, but James didn't hear him. 50 million, heiress, foundation. His mind reeled. The men at the bar chuckled, nudging each other. Isn't that your wife? Damn, she's rich. You lucky dog. Lucky? The word cut deep. His stomach churned. He wasn't lucky. He was ruined. He had walked away from her. For Vanessa. For nothing. His hands shook as he pulled out his phone, dialing Vanessa. She answered with her usual sharp tone. What is it now? Turn on the news, he hissed. There was a pause, followed by silence on the other end. Then Vanessa's voice, sharp and cold. 50 million? She had 50 million this whole time? James's voice cracked. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know. Vanessa laughed, cruel and bitter. Oh, James, you left a queen for me, and now you're sitting broke in a bar while she's shining on every screen. Do you realize how pathetic that is? His chest tightened, humiliation flooding his veins. Vanessa, don't. But the line went dead. Back in the ballroom, Clara stepped down from the stage, applause still ringing in her ears. For a moment, she allowed herself a private smile. She wasn't celebrating revenge. She was celebrating survival. But deep inside, she knew James was watching. And for the first time since that night in the hospital, The balance of power had shifted entirely. She lifted her glass in a quiet toast to herself. "This is just the beginning," she whispered. The gala had ended hours earlier, but Clara still lingered in the lobby of the Grand Hotel, speaking with journalists and well-wishers. Her foundation had already attracted pledges, and the glow of cameras followed her every move. She felt the weight of her father's letter in her mind, his words steadying her as she answered questions with poise. "Mrs. Mitchell," one reporter called, "what inspired you to dedicate the Herald fortune to single mothers?" Clara smiled faintly. "Because strength isn't measured by who stands beside you, but by what you can stand through alone. No woman should have to face abandonment in her most vulnerable moment." Applause rippled from nearby guests, and the reporters scribbled with renewed vigor. Clara's eyes softened as she glanced toward the doors. For the first time in weeks, she felt almost at peace. But then the doors burst open. James stumbled inside, disheveled in a wrinkled shirt, his face pale with desperation. The crowd gasped, cameras swiveling instantly. He scanned the room, spotted Clara, and marched toward her with shaky determination. "Clara!" His voice cracked, echoing against the marble walls. "Clara, please! We need to talk." Her heart clenched, not from longing, but from disbelief that he would dare. The photographers surged forward, their flashes lighting up the scene like lightning. James reached her, falling to his knees in front of everyone. His voice broke. "I made a mistake. I was blind. I shouldn't have left you. Please, please take me back. For us. For the baby." Gasps filled the room. Guests whispered furiously, cameras capturing every angle of his humiliation. Clara froze, every eye in the lobby fixed on her. She saw James's trembling hands, his eyes red with shame, and for a moment, a flicker of the man she once loved appeared. But then, just as quickly, she remembered the hospital, the sting of his words, the sight of him walking out while she bled and screamed. Her baby's face flashed in her mind, and her father's voice followed. "Never let betrayal define you." Clara bent slightly, her voice steady enough for only him to hear. "The night you abandoned me in labor, you also abandoned the very fortune you now kneel for. $50 million, James. You left with nothing." James's eyes widened, his lips parting, but no sound came. He collapsed lower, the realization crashing down on him like a tidal wave. The cameras caught every second of it, his begging, her calm refusal. A reporter's voice rang out, "Mrs. Mitchell, is this man your husband?" Clara straightened, looking directly into the cameras. Her expression was calm, regal. He was. And with that, she turned, her gown flowing behind her as the crowd erupted in murmurs. James remained on the floor, broken, swallowed by flashes of light that would ensure his humiliation was tomorrow's headline. Outside, stepping into the cool night air, Clara lifted her chin, whispering to herself, "Power doesn't come from wealth. It comes from walking away when they expect you to crawl back." The hotel lobby emptied slowly after Clara's departure, but James remained on the marble floor long after the cameras had stopped flashing. The whispers of strangers still buzzed in his ears. Words like pathetic, humiliated, and she's better off. His knees ached from kneeling, his pride torn to shreds. Finally, he staggered to his feet, clutching the railing as if it were the only thing keeping him upright. He pushed through the revolving doors into the night air, but there, waiting like a shadow, was Vanessa. She leaned casually against a black car, her lips painted crimson, her eyes glinting with something between amusement and disgust. "Well, well," she drawled, arms crossed. "If it isn't the mighty James Mitchell, reduced to begging like a stray dog in front of half the city." James froze, his throat dry. "Vanessa, what are you doing here?" She tilted her head, smirking. "Watching the show, darling. Did you think I wouldn't notice when every news station played your little scene with your wife? Or should I say ex-wife?" His face burned, shame twisting his features. "It's not what it looked like. I just needed her to listen." "Needed her?" Vanessa laughed, the sound sharp enough to cut. "You left her in labor, James. For me, you thought you were trading up. But now she's a queen with 50 million, and you're just a broke fool choking on your pride. Tell me, was it worth it? Her words hit like stones. He tried to step closer, desperation clawing through him. I still have you. You're all I have left. Vanessa's laughter died instantly. Her eyes turned cold, cruel. Oh, James. That's where you're wrong. You don't have me. You never had me. I don't stick with losers. And right now, you're the definition of failure. He reached for her arm, but she pulled back sharply. Don't touch me. She glanced at her watch, then back at him with mocking pity. Here's the truth. I never loved you. You were just convenient. A man desperate enough to crawl, but foolish enough to think he could climb. Now, you're nothing but a headline, and I don't date scandals. James's chest heaved, his knees trembling as the reality sank deeper than humiliation. It was final rejection. Vanessa slid into the car, the driver already holding the door open. She paused, her last words slicing through him. You left a queen for a pawn, and now you've lost both. The car door slammed, and the vehicle glided into the night, leaving James standing alone under the harsh glow of the hotel lights. For the first time, he felt the full weight of what he had done, not just losing Clara, but losing every shred of respect, dignity, and future he thought he controlled. Inside, high above the city, Clara laid her baby gently in a crib in her suite. She stood at the window, the lights twinkling below like a kingdom waiting for her to shape it. She closed her eyes, breathing deep. Somewhere out there, James was falling apart. Somewhere out there, Vanessa had revealed herself for what she truly was. But here, in this moment, Clara was no longer the woman abandoned in a hospital bed. She was the woman holding the power, and this was only the beginning of what she would build. Rain pounded the streets that night, washing away the city's glitter into rivers of dirt. James huddled under the awning of a closed cafe, his once pristine suit soaked through, his hair plastered to his forehead. He clutched his arms around himself, shivering not only from the cold, but from the emptiness gnawing inside him. Hours earlier, he had been mocked by Vanessa, abandoned under the hotel lights. Now his phone battery was dead, his wallet nearly empty. And the man who once strutted through life with arrogance had been reduced to a shadow with nowhere to go. He closed his eyes, his mind replaying Clara's words at the gala. The night you abandoned me in labor, you also abandoned the very fortune you now kneel for. $50 million, James. You left with nothing. Each syllable hit him again like a hammer. He saw her in that gown, radiant, untouchable, her voice steady as she said, "He was my husband," to the cameras. And he knew there was no crawling back from that. For the first time, tears welled in his eyes. Real ones. Not from pride, not from anger, but from the crushing weight of regret. Meanwhile, across town, Clara sat in the quiet nursery of her father's estate. Her baby slept peacefully in a cradle carved with her father's initials. The storm outside rattled the windows, but inside was warmth, light, and safety. Clara watched her child's tiny chest rise and fall, her heart softening even as memories of James's betrayal tried to harden her. She whispered, "I forgive you, James, but forgiveness isn't a doorway. It's a wall. I forgive, but you will never be welcome again." Her words steadied her, sealing the wound like stitches. She thought of her father, of his warning, and realized that the true inheritance wasn't the money, it was resilience, dignity, and the strength to walk away. The next morning, headlines across every paper and news feed carried the story. Heiress launches $50 million foundation. Husband publicly begs, rejected. James's face, twisted in humiliation on the hotel floor, was splashed beside Clara's regal smile at the podium. One image spoke of ruin, the other of rebirth. James saw those headlines too. From the shelter where he had found temporary refuge, he stared at the newspapers on the counter. Whispers followed him as people recognized his face. He lowered his head, shame pressing down on him like chains. Clara, on the other hand, walked confidently into the future. She expanded her foundation, giving speeches, opening shelters, standing with women who once thought they had no hope. Each time she looked into the crowd, she saw pieces of herself reflected back, betrayed, abandoned, yet still standing. And each time, she spoke with fire. Sometimes the ones who walk away think they're leaving you broken, but really they're freeing you to rise higher than they ever could. Her words became her legacy, her child's inheritance, not just wealth, but wisdom carved out of pain. And James, he remained a living warning, a man who traded love for lust, loyalty for greed, only to lose everything when the truth revealed itself. Clara never saw him again, not truly, but sometimes when she stood at her window holding her child, she thought of him wandering the streets, broken, and whispered a final prayer. Not for reconciliation, but for distance. May he finally learn, she said softly, what it means to lose what can't be bought. The storm outside cleared, sunlight breaking through the clouds. Her child stirred, eyes blinking open, and Clara smiled through quiet tears. This, she whispered, lifting the baby into her arms. This is the true inheritance. You. The story had come full circle, not with vengeance, but with power, not with hatred, but with healing. And for Clara, that was worth more than all the millions her father had left behind.